behind?
Yes.
Just want to make sure. Okay, great, thanks. So the session tonight is not really risk management. It's that was, I think, a word I threw out a while back. But the session is safe sport, and well, some people may believe that the child there with the helmet and bubble wrap is what safe sport is, but it's really not that. I don't really think we need any housekeeping stuff. You've all been on this a fair bit of time. If you have any questions, throw them in the chat or raise your hand and we'll try and get to them. Fawn, if you could, while I'm presenting, I can't really see that stuff too well. So if you could monitor that, that would be great.
Will do.
So I'm not 100% who's all on because, again, I can just really see my screen right now with the presentation, but our technical staff is here, so that's Fawn. I believe Eunice is here. I haven't seen if John is on. I'm sorry, John, if you're here. I always seem to say that.
We are here.
Attaboy. John Folds, legend that is. Paul Quinn has been invited, and I don't know if I saw Paul on.
I'm here, Graeme.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Reese as well, and our admin team just finished a meeting for the DSP, so they may be having dinner right now. So our agenda items, really safe sport, what it is, what it means, what it might mean to you as a volunteer, as a coach, or as a participant, some COVID-19 discussions, where we have a pilot project that I'd like to introduce and talk about briefly, some considerations. We're going to talk about concussions, also the rule of two. The reason that we're not going to talk extensively about the rule of two, what I really wanted to put a lens on what you're doing is really about safe sport. And so what is safe sport? Really, the goal of our meeting is to put this lens on it, our interactions and activities, whether it's games or whether we're thinking in terms of COVID. But if you could, and Fawn, your marketer, you're going to have to help me out here on this because I can't see the chat room right now. But if you have an idea what you think safe sport is, please share, and maybe Fawn, you could read those out or read a couple out, and then we can move on. Sure. If anybody has any ideas, particularly you CITs, I really like to get your heads wrapped around what safe sport could mean and what it might mean to you right now. I'm pretty sure that's not a Celtic player in there, Paul, in that bubble wrap. It looks like there's green underneath there, but I'm pretty sure it's not a Celtic player.
Probably played better than most of them right now, so that's fine.
Anyone brave enough on yet?
Not yet, no. I'll say for myself, I was thinking psychological safety.
Psychological safety, that's a good one.
No safety concerns and having a positive environment. Nice one, Emily.
Mm-hmm.
A space where players feel safe emotionally, physically, and socially. Thanks, Lindsay. Everyone feeling comfortable. Ava.
Mm-hmm. That's a good
one. Richard says players feel safe coming to practice and/or the game. Mm-hmm. Natasha says players, coaches, and parents feel supported mentally and physically. They come out of the practice feeling better physically and mentally than before.
Mm-hmm. Let me know if we're tapped out. I'll just go on.
Last call. I think we're tapped.
Okay. Well, that's great. That's a really good start. In that it seems like everyone has the lens so far. Those all are really sort of really key components. And what you'll see from the slides from this evening is that it's a huge field. It's a huge undertaking. It covers a gamut of many different areas, but really, as you can see here from the slide, everyone has the right to enjoy the sport at whatever level or position they participate. Players, coaches, officials, and volunteers have the right to participate in a safe and inclusive training and competitive environment that's free from abuse, harassment, or discrimination. The welfare of everyone involved in the sport is is a foremost consideration, and in particular, the protection of children and athletes in the sport is a responsibility of each individual member and special interest group in the athletic community. So risk management and safe sport go hand in hand. We do that at a board level. We do it at an operations level, which is where I'm at. We do it as a volunteer level. We do it as coaches, players, we even do it. So risk management is the practice of identifying and assessing and treating risks so to better achieve desired outcomes, enabling the delivery of quality sport programming. So again, as you as a CIT or you as a head coach or an assistant coach, some of these roles are going to be a little bit different and your lens might be, smaller or larger. But the point is ensuring that you have that in your mindset as a focus as you're developing programs, you're running sessions, you're setting yourself up for success. So I was going to go to the chat room again, Fawn. I don't know if you find that challenging, but some of the major challenges to create a safe sport environment, what are they? If you have any extras here to enter in the chat room, I would love to hear them. Because again, like I said, we're really talking about getting around that, wrapped up into that sort of focus of what safe sport is and what it means, and get you to be thinking critically when you arise at a session or during a session or after, and helping you with your preparedness. So some significant challenges are the environment, the culture of a sport or a team, player-parent bias or lack of knowledge, arrival time, and how can you set up properly if you arrive at kickoff when everybody's already on the field and things are going. Distractions, we've all been there, we're all distracted for let's say, some people for work, some people with arguments with family members, boyfriends, girlfriends, etc. It's hard to carry on or carry out your duty of providing a safe sport environment sometimes due to distractions. So being aware of those things is really important. And as well as traditional beliefs and experiences. Those are all factor into the challenges. I don't know, Fawn, if anybody had any extras, but we can move on if not.
So we had Samara who said commitment, and Eli has said a challenge to make a safe sport could be being on a team with your friends or people you don't like. Emily said setting expectations for all members of a team at the beginning of the year.
That's really good, and also it was Eli's, I think, about that really gets into some of the other things that we'll touch on tonight. This is not going to be you're not going to become an expert of everything by the time of this, but again, it's about that lens. But certainly that mental health aspect of involved with bullying, anti-bullying, teams that are accepting or not, where cliques are developing, those are all a part of that. So how can we affect positive change with regard to safe sport? Well, change. We know that soccer and sport in general has had a huge focus change due to Rowan's Law, the tragic incident that led to Rowan's Law. And really simply, it's all of us. It's not, whether it's, takes a village or whatever, but it's everyone. It's coaches, players and peers, parents, referees, club staff, technical coaches, club officials. So that's presidents, treasurers, VPs, governing bodies, Ontario Soccer, Canadian Soccer Association, our government, particularly our government's got a lot more involved with sport and controlling what we can do or can't do during COVID. And committees that we have ongoing that are dealing with some of the inequities that also contribute to the type of culture you have within a club or within a sport. So how you can do it, one of the things that I have here on the left, does anybody guess what that diagram of the two heads means or is demonstrating? There's two differences there, obviously. Anyone, Fawn, that you can see? Anyone want to brave that one?
There's no hands raised.
Okay. Anyone want to get a free coffee on Fawn? Feel free to hazard us.
Oh.
One's open-minded, one's closed-minded.
Perfect. Who was that? Was that Eli? I can't tell.
Yeah, that was me.
Excellent, great. So what we were looking at there is a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset, which you said it a different way, which is exactly the same thing. To understand that you need to change, and to change, you really need to have a growth mindset. So some of the things that are in place now for, let's say, concussion awareness, it's not just concussion awareness. We've moved on from that, and a lot of the things that are happening in research are about prevention. How can you prevent it? So it's a thing that in soccer I know is very important to a lot of us. Fawn and myself have suffered a fair amount of concussions. I think what's led to Fawn stopping from playing, I know. And Paul is on here, so I'm just assuming as a Scot, he knows all about that. Sorry, Paul.
It's okay, I get thick skin, and payback's going to be fun.
So for COVID-19, one of the things that we've had to do is we have to be incredibly adaptable. We've had to, the primary priority has been the safety of everybody, but we've had to change what a session looked like. We've had to change how many times, you could interact with someone, or the intensity of interaction, or the type of interaction. We've done a lot to do that, and you'll be able to see in probably a year or two of all the different things you've had to do, and reflect on them when we get back to normal, hopefully by the end of this year, and going into indoor, where you'll be, wow, we used to do things so differently. Now we can kind of do what we want. And you'll realize that you've had to have had that sort of open growth mindset to be able to function in this and function well. So just the last thing on the COVID-19, there is an online course, and we'll send you the deck for this. So that's the PowerPoint presentation. And in here, there are some great links. And one of the things that I found during all of some of the research I was doing and preparing for this was, there is a COVID-wise education free online course that you can do, and it doesn't take very long. But what it does do is, again, it creates that sort of, puts that lens on what does it take to set up a session properly, and how do I interact with players, and remind myself what do I do or need to do, or how do I get help from parents. It's really it's there. It's on that slide 9 there, but that'll be sent to you. So click on that and check it out if you're interested. So the Ottawa Sport Council is starting a Safe Sport pilot project, and we're a part of that project. And so we have a workshop coming up, which I'm bringing it to your attention because I've asked for volunteers from, and I only need 2, but I do need 2 to participate with me in this program. And whether it's a coach here, an assistant coach, or an adult player, or a staff member, whatever it is. But it's a really valuable opportunity for both Ottawa Internationals, but also the general sport movement in the city. And you can read there, it says it's opportunity for stakeholders, including athletes, coaches, officials, and administrators, to come together to discuss safe sport and determine reasonable and realistic approaches for the Ottawa sport community, which is going to provide resources to the over 90 different sport organizations that are members of the Ottawa Sport Council. So if you're interested, please contact me. We need 2 people to join us on the workshop dates of Saturday, May 8th from 9 to 12 and Saturday, May 15th, 9 to 12. And the commitment is for both because the work is continuous. So if you are interested, I certainly would love to have you join us. And these are just all the different groups that are participating. There's ability, all of different types of abilities participating. All kinds of different sports, not just soccer. Should be pretty interesting experience, as well as Awesome Ottawa is there. As you know, we're going to start our Awesome soccer program. Goal is for August. So the day of considerations, day of an event. So day of a practice, a day of a training session. What are some considerations for coaches, participants, volunteers? It says there, please enter in the chat what some considerations might be. So Fawn, back over to you for a second. Did you hear me, Fawn? Sorry.
I did, yes. Okay. Sorry, I am waiting.
That's okay. That's okay. I just want to make sure because my microphone has not really been that successful lately, so I never know if people can actually hear me.
Yeah, apologies. So Audrey and Gordon, I don't know which one wants to take credit, has said the number of athletes participating.
Yeah, that's a good.
Anthony is asked, is there a player limit allowed on field?
Maximum right now is of 0, but when we get back out, it'll be 25 participants. So the day of considerations would be about creating a safe sport environment.
What equipment you need? Player coming,
yes.
Weather, another weather, social distance drills.
Yeah, great. Feel free to chime in. I'll skip ahead to the next slide, but that was great.
Number of volunteers, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's great. Keep them coming. And we can intermingle them because there's not a full list that I have here. But player status is one that we often don't think of. How tired are the players before they come to a session? Have they been ill? Have they recovered? Have they recovered completely from a knock or an injury they've received? How busy were they? Were they at camp all day? And that helps you also in having that lens or understanding. Sometimes when you're coaching the younger ones, particularly the DSP, you realize they may not have the attention span that they normally do. So if you understand that they may not have the attention span that they might normally do because they've been at camp or in the sun all day, then you can temper your expectations, and you don't have to, you temper your expectations and understand that everybody's coming from different backgrounds and at different times. So the environment, weather, people were talking about that. So that's great. Activity level of players previous to arrival, competition level. I think someone mentioned something similar to that, as well as field conditions. So those are only 5. There's probably many, many more. I know there's more. And one of them that's missing there really is really about nutrition, but I think it might be on another slide here. So field conditions. Anybody been to a high school field or a school field and seen that type of, field condition that you're supposed to take a free kick from, or near and around, or a corner kick, or penalty? We've all seen that. Field conditions also are temporary goals in use. So, that's a consideration. Are they tippy? Have they been secured properly? Some places where you go, particularly for tournaments, is there insufficient room between fields? Or is there insufficient room between spectators in the field? I've seen damage due to grass cutting a few years ago. We actually weren't able to play the game because of it. The potholes is there, and goal mouth issues. We've all seen those kinds of things, but it's also important for us to know that we need to be aware of those things. So I'll just go back. Sorry, for field conditions. What's something that you might do about that for field conditions? What can you do as a coach or a volunteer that are showing up to a field? Anybody out there? Anyone? Bueller?
Sean has said that Newfoundland still has World War One craters, and then he suggested that you might adjust the plan.
There you go. You can play creative footy.
John has said bad lining on a field, dangerous goalposts.
Yeah.
You might end up cordoning off part of the pitch if it's quite bad.
So that's a good adaptation as a coach. To do that is critical, to be honest. But you'd also have to make sure that there's enough room to get to do it, that it's not so intrusive that it. But also one of the things is how do you find out that information? So the number one thing you should be doing as a coach every single session is inspecting the field. You should be walking the field, and what's really helpful to do that, and I think John and Fawn, yourself and Paul, you understand, and Tony, I think I saw you on here too, buddy, is that you've coached for a long time. The easiest way to inspect the field is when you start setting up your session. You get to the field early, you start setting up your session, you walk the field, you set up your cones, and then and some of the things that I've experienced is that when I was coordinating a tournament on the Friday night, fields were great. By the Saturday morning, the field condition hadn't changed, except that there was a party there the night before, and there was a whole bunch of broken bottles on the field early in the morning on the Saturday. So because the field was good last Tuesday, it might not be good by the Thursday. That's basically the point there. So as a coach, it is your responsibility to walk the field and make sure it's safe. So someone else mentioned another one here is inclement weather. What are some types of inclement weather that may challenge you to provide a safe environment? Keep on those CITs. I keep hearing great responses from the CITs. So maybe some of you
again with rain, Justine thunderstorms, Emily thunderstorms, Ava thunderstorms, Georgia lightning, Eunice thunder. I heard about somebody playing in the snow one time. That surely can't be great. Natasha says snow. We got a hail and a snow from Elizabeth. More thunder, rain, extreme heat. There's a good one.
Great. That's a good one. So which of these have you experienced? You see the lightning there, obviously. You see the thunderstorm in the distance on that one field. Obviously, extreme heat is one. Did you know that regular grass and artificial turf can vary incredibly in heat with the same ambient temperature? So the same temperature on your thermometer there, you hear in the news, it says it's 25 degrees out. Do you know that the field turf temperature can be 20 degrees hotter than grass? And anybody that's been into a tournament on an artificial turf field will know that if you ever felt the heat, sometimes it feels like it's coming through your shoes. Anybody had an experience like this?
That looks like Scotland again, is it? I'm joking.
No, I don't think they get tornadoes in Scotland, do they? Do they, Paul?
No, I'm kidding.
That's just a normal Saturday night.
Yeah. There you go. So just a sidebar here is I've been in, and Jasleen, who is on here, as well as some of my soccer team that I was coaching a couple of years ago, we're caught in a tornado at the what was that, in October, I believe that hit, wasn't it? And then the one that it was Craig Henry in the West End and Maryville, and the power was out. I was stuck with my friend inside his SUV while we're getting pelted with rocks and flying debris. That was and the soccer team was inside at a banquet. And then the following year, we went out to Cumberland to play a match, and we got caught in the tornado in Cumberland the following year. So I never expected to be caught in it once, but I certainly didn't expect to be caught in a tornado twice. So inclement weather, heat and humidity, common day of factors that might pose risk for players. So your hydration level, how much water have you drank, not within the last hour, but all day and the day before. You can get cramps, injuries, heat exhaustion, heat stroke. So a couple of notes for you, because you're coaching, is kids heat up 3 to 5 times faster than adults and older teens. Babies and young children don't regulate their body temperatures as well as adults and older children. So say teenagers, once you've either had a year of puberty or gone through or completed, basically. This is in part because you perspire less and because they generate more warmth as they exercise and move. So they're also less able to recognize that they are overheated. And they certainly don't always indicate their needs for cooling until later. So a lot of the time, if you wait till you're really thirsty before you drink, it's not a great thing to do. You really need to be taking in fluids regularly. And so having those conversations with your athletes is really important. So if you're talking about, summer sports and relative humidity over 60%, it reduces your ability to cool yourself by sweating because the moisture content in the air is so high. And exercise produces 15 to 20 times more heat than the body at rest, which if you think about it, it's incredible. Sorry, I don't know what happened there. So heat illness increases after just 3% of your body weight from fluid loss. So that's not hard to get to, particularly in Ottawa. It's really not. It's really challenging to make sure that everyone is drinking enough. So if you're at a tournament or if your kids are showing up to a session after being out in the sun all day at a camp, you can almost guarantee they haven't drank enough water. So I don't want to get too much into the details on a lot of this, but the difference between heat exhaustion or heat stroke, but really a lot of the things that you need to be concerned about, the symptoms are people feeling dizzy or faint and excessive sweating, cool, pale, clammy skin, nausea or vomiting, rapid, weak pulse, and no sweating. When you're not sweating, it's a really serious sign. If you're not sweating in the heat, it's really not good. And body temperature above 103 degrees, nausea or vomiting, rapid, strong pulse. This is not to scare everybody, but it's certainly something because a lot of the programming you're going to do this year, this is not going to come up as much because you're not going to be at a tournament per se. But there is still an opportunity that you might be participating on turf in excess of 35, 36, 37 degree weather. So what can you do? You can make sure that your players are acclimatizing or acclimating. It means they're going to get used to the weather. Hydrate, train in cooler weather and temperatures where possible, and choose shady areas for things like warm up and cool down, particularly, and taking breaks in the shade. So the importance of heat acclimation, it assists your body to adapt to training and changing seasons and temperatures. Just this spring, I went out and did some raking with my kids in the front garden, and it was like 25 degrees or something. I couldn't believe how hot I got so quickly. It's also a bit of zero to hero complex, but typically acclimatization requires at least 1 to 2 hours of heat exposure per day, and it can be broken down into 2 1-hour periods. So you want to do it gradually. And you want to make sure that you're exercising and moving in the temperature that you're going to need to get used to. And generally the body will acclimatize to the level of exercise demanded of it. So simply being in a hot place isn't sufficient. You need to start exercising in that weather to acclimatize. Otherwise, your body is just going to acclimatize to being at rest in the heat. So doing light or brief physical workouts in the heat will acclimatize you only to light, brief workouts. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge because a lot of people avoid the heat until they actually have to go and do something. Again, it's really important to just have that as part of your lens to what you're doing. So field considerations, I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but I was looking at some of the things that this happened to a player of mine in Montreal where their boot started coming off, not as badly as this person's boot, but that's basically the glue is melted off the shoe because it got so hot. So we have an inclement weather policy. The link is there. But it's only good if you abide by it. How many times have you been told to clear a field because of or a game's been canceled due to thunder or lightning, and everybody hangs out in the parking lot? So it's only really good if you abide by it. So if you're canceling a session, you should get everyone to clear, get in their cars and go home. So we also do have a really good resource for a lot of this material that's in the team manager and official handbook. And you can find it at that link, and we'll send that again out to you so you'll be able to click on it. Some excellent resources in there about what to do with weather, emergency action plans, etc. So some game day must-haves. Does anybody have any game day must-haves that I don't have here? I'd be really interested in hearing them because I think there's probably more that could go in here. So I have put in emergency action plan. We'll send you that sample plan. That'll be part of the volunteer manual anyway, but we'll get you a copy so you'll know what that's involved. First aid kit, ice or ice instant ice cold packs. They're not great, but they do for an emergency. They work. Contact information, volunteer medical history of players and volunteers. Cell phone, which is charged. Other items, water. For COVID, a thermometer. I know other people have recommended having one handy for kids in case for heat exhaustion or that, but I don't really think that's something that we would be expecting you to carry. So Fawn, does anybody have any extra game day must-haves as far as that goes?
Yeah, so Natasha has suggested energy drink, chocolate milk, juice. Both Emily and Alessia have said sunscreen. Sean, an umbrella or a tent. Emily, extra soccer balls. I don't think you're Julie, but I can't remember. Extra jersey. Elizabeth said a pump. I would also add, maybe dependent on how the group operates, you could have inhalers handy or even EpiPens. Alessia says bug spray.
Alessia, is that for your dad or for you?
Perfect.
Yeah, there's definitely things to put in there, and some things you're comfortable with, and some things you're not. For, if you're coaching girls who've started puberty, I know we had my teams have always had an extra bag of stuff for girls to have access to things that they may need. There's lots of things, and for some coaches, there's extra things because they're comfortable, and others they're not. Again, having information, having a first aid kit, a well-equipped first aid kit. That's the one problem that first aid kits when you go away to tournaments is they usually get depleted really quickly, and you don't necessarily fill them back up. So having someone designated to monitor that and ensure that it gets restocked is really important as well. Fawn, anything from Northern Ireland that you might have that we might not have, like maybe a magic sponge?
Blister pads are a good one because it gets pretty dry in the summer months.
It is.
And your boots tend to do that on you, No, I'm kidding. There was a one-time thing, but yeah, blister plasters wouldn't be a bad thing.
I would say the other thing to avoid blisters for most teams that go to tournaments, one of the things that I always would tell my players is bring extra socks. So when your feet get wet and your shoes start rubbing because you end up sweating or just get wet, whether it's water, blisters, particularly at the beginning of the season, it seems to occur a lot. I don't know if there's anything in Scotland that they do. Anything in Greece, Tony? Anything extra that we don't do here that we might want to adapt or add to our list?
No, I pretty much covered it all, it seems. I can't think of anything additional.
So I'm going to see if this works. I'm not sure if this is going to work or not, but we'll try it out.
I don't think, well, I can't hear it, Graeme, but you're also on mute.
How's that? Let me try it again. How about that? How about this one? Let me know.
No, still not. I think what you have to do is you'll have to stop sharing screen, and then when you go to reshare your screen, it gives you the option to share the sound as well.
Okay. What I'm going to do is I'll just leave it.
Okay.
All that is a video of those kids, and it'll be in the deck, so you can all click on it when you get it. It's what it is addressing concussions, and it's addressing the subject. One of the most important elements of concussions and dealing with concussions, and which is the primary issue around why Rowan Stringer passed away, was not communicating about injuries, not communicating about concussions. So that little snippet video, it's only 5 seconds, was all about, thanks coach for letting me be able to talk about it. Thanks coach for creating an environment where I can feel safe to talk to you about it. And so we all have anecdotal experiences with concussions. I think I could talk a fair bit about my own. But in the end, the biggest challenges that still faces most sport is the fact that we don't talk openly and honestly about not just the concussions, but what the expectations are about concussions. So pressure to play, whether it exists or not, or whether it's just so that someone's created in their inner dialogue that the coach wants me to play, the players want me to play, or they need me to play. I want to play. I really need to play. I need to prove myself. And there's lots of challenges around communicating about injuries. And so one of the most important things is always having an open dialogue about injuries and about returning to play, and understanding the importance of that. And if as a coach, a player comes to you and you have a game and the player comes to you and says, I can't play tonight, I have an injury, think twice before you react. Think twice before you give an impression of, oh, you've let me down, or I'm disappointed, now I have to redo my lineup. Because those things are observed, and those things are really important. And those messages, whether it's spoken or whether it's through body language, are interpreted and they're received by players. So the biggest thing, one of the challenges that's left about concussion to deal with is a lot of the things that are unspoken, a lot of the things, the messages that aren't shared between coaches and players. So it's really about building trust. Anybody have any anecdotal experiences they'd like to share about that? I have a bunch, but it's okay if you don't. The challenge is ensuring that players know that they're in a safe environment, a safe sport, where they can come to you and tell you that they're injured and they're not ready to play.
100%. I think what you were kind of getting at, Graeme, is that the players sometimes can put more pressure on themselves. So it's almost our duty as coaches to totally relieve any pressure, and almost make it unacceptable to come forward and think you're going to play if you're not ready to, right? So it's, yeah.
Exactly.
It's a tricky one.
Yeah, it's not easy, but the only real way you can face it is facing it head on by having honest. And you know, I always say to myself, my players was, there's always more soccer. I know you're disappointed not to play today, but there'll be more soccer for you.
Mm-hmm.
So just talking about concussion, we're not going to get, we have had an opportunity through Auto Sport Council to do concussion. There is concussion training, which is making headway in soccer. But what is concussion? It's a brain injury. And the importance primarily we'll focus on this evening really is just that brain injury awareness, that it is a brain injury, and that you really don't need to hesitate when it comes to erring on the side of caution. So Rowan's Law overview really is just that Rowan Stringer was a player who was playing rugby who had multiple concussions within a very short time frame, who ended up dying from the concussions. And the sad part of the culture of sport, that whether that's been created, was that she wanted to play so badly that she wasn't open and honest about her concussions. And so with that as a recurring issue, the second concussion occurring very soon after a first is very dangerous. So we'll be sending you more information here, and I won't spend a lot of time on this evening, because there's lots of documentation and lots of information that we have done, put together for you. We do know that there's a concussion removal from play policy, which is very different. We've all probably had experience with the concussion return to play policy, which is what happens after you have been recognized to have had a concussion and have likely gone to get treatment. But there's a removal from play policy, which becomes primary role of coaches, but not just coaches. Parents, players also have an opportunity to contribute to a safe sport environment by reading and understanding the concussion removal from play policies. And why they exist is to make sure that we're watching out for particular types of more easily or readily notable instances, but also being aware that a lot of symptoms don't show up potentially for people for up to 48 hours later. So erring on the side of caution is really important for that fact alone. The Ottawa Sport Council Concussion Awareness is really a really good tool, or a really good video. I encourage you all to watch that. Again, Parachute Canada, probably at the forefront of all concussion access, identification, information that exists. They've been hired by a lot of other different organizations to provide background information as well as training. They have a fantastic app for your phone as well. So I think it's under parachute.ca, but if you look up Parachute Canada, you'll get that. Again, you'll get a copy of this, so you'll be able to click on the link yourself. And Eunice is here, I think, still. Eunice, this is what I was talking to you about. My apologies, Eunice. Eunice hasn't. I've asked Eunice to talk about return to play and physical preparation and why that's really important to create a safe environment. And I don't know, Eunice, if you can hear me or not.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so these are the two slides that we had used before that I just in another thing that I thought. But feel free to just riff away on me.
Yeah. So basically here on the physical preparation, what we know like soccer is a physical demanding game, right? There are many like high intensity runs, explosive movements, lots of change of actions and directions, and also endurance. So we want to make sure our players are ready. They have that physical, let's say, preparation during training and then before games. That way we can as well make it safe for them to avoid, reduce injury risks, right, at the end. And also for them to feel safe and in shape to play. So what we want to focus mainly at the beginning is to build a good foundation. So having a good base, so they have a good control of their body, have a good movement patterns, good techniques as well. So when we start getting more into intensity and explosive movements, we can reduce that risk of injuries, and then they'll have a better level of adaptation as well to adapt for training and be better prepared. And at the same time, what we want to do on the physical aspect is that we can transfer those abilities to other sports. It's not only for soccer. Most of them can be transferred to other sports. Like if you're a goalkeeper and you're throwing the ball, then you can transfer maybe to baseball for example. I don't know if we get like players that play baseball and soccer, but that's the idea, right? If we have someone that does track and field, well, their technique of running will be transferred to soccer, and then they will have that explosive and that sprinting technique to go really fast. And yeah, so that's basically the main idea of having the physical preparation, and to have it as well, like having a positive impact on their lifestyle, right? It's not only for sports, it's also for them to enjoy their life at the end, right? Being able to go up the stairs instead of taking the electrical stairs, right? When they're in a mall or just shopping or walking around. So being able to walk a few kilometers, or I don't know, 30 minutes, just non-stopping, just to see the sights, the side views, the nature. I don't know. So that's also what we want to do that on that side. And then we have the coach development aspects. So it's basically for you guys to recognize the importance of the physical training and to know when we should train specific abilities for the age groups. So mainly when I talked about this on the last presentation I did about the 9-year-olds. Maybe we're not going to have them doing super focusing really on the technique. It's mainly about them playing, having good physical literacy movements like crawling, jumping, running, throwing, some activities like that, just getting them move and getting used to their bodies. And then for the older age group, then we're focusing more on explosiveness, intensity, right? Yeah, I think that's mainly what was the idea. Of course, we need to keep in mind that first we work on volume, repetitions, and then we work on intensity.
Right, and that's a key, I think, Eunice, to returning back to sport safely too, right?
Right. Yeah. So normally they're like, I know I did an internship with a club over there in the Netherlands when I was over there, and they had this return to, let's say, before having the return to play phase of a player that got injured, they actually had return to train, because you need to have those players. They were kind of in academies and professional players, but still, I think if we can integrate this to our club, it'll be really good, right? Because at the beginning, when you get your player going back into training after an injury, either ankle injury, I don't know, shoulder injury, knee injury, they will not train at the same rhythm and intensity as your players that you already have. So you need to have a progression as well with them. So they can come to train, but you need to be aware that they might not go full out because they're still not ready to go full out during the training. And once they go progressively, slowly moving up, that's when you start thinking now about return to play to the games. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's
something else, Graeme.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you want to add something on that side.
Sure. Is there something now, or
no? Like if you want to say something extra.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So the only thing that I say, the great example is someone coming off an ankle injury who ends up pulling a hamstring because they've basically their ankle feels better, but they haven't got the rest of their body back in shape, right?
Right. So yeah. So as well, when we tell like players to rest, yeah, we want them to rest that joint. Let's say that they got injured, but they can still be active. You know, we don't want them to stay inactive completely, because then they'll get detrained. They're losing those muscles, mass, the muscle mass, and the conditioning. So, for example, the ankle injury, yeah, maybe it's on the right foot, but at home they could do like one leg squats. Maybe they can still do push-ups, right? On only on one leg instead of having both legs on the ground. Well, they only have one, so it's harder, but they will still be working out and be active. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Eunice.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So the safe sport training, this is for everyone. The Coaching Association of Canada offers a free training course on safe sport. And it really is, there's a lot of things that you talk in coaching about that apply very similar to here, is building a safe sport environment together. You know, creating a culture again where everyone can thrive is a shared responsibility. Safe sport training was developed to help anyone involved in sport, whether you have direct contact with athletes or work in the background, to promote physical, psychological, and social health in line with the Universal Code of Conduct to prevent and address maltreatment in sport. So really, we're always talking about it, and I think Fawn and Eunice and Tony and John, we always talk about this when we're talking about, you know, sport, you know, philosophy in that. But you're creating an environment, and the environment that you're creating really ends up being like critical to how well your players develop. And as everyone seemed to be fairly aware of at the beginning of this, we're talking about safe sport and what it means to you is understanding that creating an environment that feels safe, and I don't mean that it's risk-free, but feels safe, safe to make mistakes, safe to fall down and get back up again, all that type of thing. It's really important. So this free training course, and again, I'll send you the link for that. It is by coach.ca, and I think everybody that's interested in coaching or, you know, being part of sport should have this lens that we're talking about, but also check out that course. I haven't taken it yet myself, but I'm going to. So a couple of areas that we're just going to get into about creating a safe environment, as people are talking about, is one issue that we'll have some experience with, either observationally or hopefully, for, you know, not personally, but it's definitely a potential. You know, harassment is a form of discrimination. It includes any unwanted physical or verbal behavior that offends or humiliates you. Generally, harassment is a behavior that persists over time. And serious one-time incidents can also sometimes be considered harassment. We've got a thing there. You report harassment directly to the president or to myself as general manager. A reason that we would rather you did that is, rather than say to a technical coach or to is that we would involve the VP of the programs for sure once it's been received. But we want to do is remove you from all the other pressures that might exist in either reporting it. So let's say if you're on a team and either a player or hopefully not, but let's say in an occurrence of a volunteer, what you felt was harassment, that we don't want them to necessarily know that you would be in need of assistance. So that's why we're moving and going directly to myself or to the president. We do have a harassment policy. Again, you'll be able to find it there. Canadian Human Rights Commission resources are found there as well. I'm not going to get into anecdotal discussions here. This is a very sensitive area for people. However, if you ever do need to raise an issue or of harassment, or you're not sure, you don't even need to report it as harassment. You can speak confidentially to myself or to our president, Fabio. And if I happen to be somewhere connected to the incident, you can obviously talk to Fabio directly. And conversely, if you felt that there was a conflict of interest, you could send it to me directly as well. Yeah, I'll go on to the next slide. So abuse, you're all in a position of authority, whether you're a CIT or a coach or an assistant coach, etc. And we do need to raise the issue here of what you can do or what you need to do. So basically, you don't need to be an expert in this. You don't need to have a ton of experience in that. You really need to know the most important thing is, in Ontario, it's the law. to report suspected child abuse or neglect. So you're required to report that to the Children's Aid Society. You're not required to report to the police. You're not required to notify the Ottawa International Soccer Club. Although in cases of abuse, it certainly would. From a club perspective, we certainly would want to know about it, but you aren't legally obliged to let us know, and that could complicate the issue by reporting it directly to the club. But legally, you're required to do it with CAS. We're not going to get into long details on this here. If you do have a need for more information or you're not sure, there are resources there that you can see, learn how to recognize the signs of child abuse and neglect. It's possible for you to see this. COVID has been a real challenge for everyone, and it's also the incidence of potential abuse and abuse in Ottawa, I know for a fact, have gone up. So this just tells you what happens when you report to the CAS. Your report will be received by a CAS worker to assess the levels of risk and urgency based on comprehensive guidelines. As part of that assessment, the provincial database is checked for past involvement with the CAS. Information is used along with other information to determine the need for an investigation. The child protection worker will take necessary action to protect the child as a result of the investigation. So as you can see there, you have no other involvement unless they came potentially, to come back to you and ask you questions as part of the investigation. But that's all you really have to do, is you just have to required to report it. So if you are a minor and you're unsure, obviously talking to your parents, talking to a guardian, talking to the club, myself or Fabio, would be something you may want to choose to do. But again, as I said, you're under no legal obligation to contact myself or the club. However, we do view it as beneficial to us as an organization to know about it. And that just last point is your duty. There's a brochure link there for you to click on in case. And again, this is for future reference. This is obviously not for right now, but if you ever did get into the situation where you're unsure, that link will be there for you as well. So mental health first aid. Mental health first aid is a new. I guess I would say it's a new field. There's all kinds of new training that you can take. There's all kinds of new perception. People are talking about mental health issues more often and more regularly, and that's a positive thing. And I've just put in here the link for the Youth Services Bureau of Ottawa and Eastern Ontario. That's a particular to our area, and they may be a little bit faster in touch with other resources if you or someone else needed that information. So really, it's talking about help is available if you know someone, or if yourself needs to talk. If you're not feeling yourself, you're experiencing a crisis, you have emotional pain, you have thoughts of suicide. Kids Help Phone, again, I'd say this is an excellent resource for adults. The Crisis Services Canada, looking for local resources, is there. This is a newer field, and developing resources and training is available for professionals, but this is a fantastic resource. These here again will be in the deck for you at a later date if you need it. And again, as a Canadian Sport Helpline, the Canadian Sport Helpline is a little bit different, which is kind of interesting. It's a national toll-free helpline offering assistance to victims or witnesses of harassment, abuse, or discrimination in sport. So it's particularly for sport. As you can see, it's a partnership with the Sport Dispute Resolution Centre of Canada, Canadian Centre for Mental Health in Sport. Again, anonymous, confidential, independent. Again, you can call or text, and they have a team of practitioners with expertise in counseling, psychology and sport to act as helpline operators. Sport is an area that's very sensitive to these issues. Historically, not one that a lot of people wanted to talk about, but that's changed quite a bit. And I encourage everybody to take advantage of those resources where and if necessary. And of course, I hope you don't need them. Again, I'll be sending this out in the deck to access the helpline toll free. Again, there's more information. And I'd just like to thank everybody for being a part of Ottawa International Safe Sport Movement. It's an ongoing process. There will be new resources coming out, things that we will be doing. We'll be offering you potentially more engagement around concussion and injury, as well as first aid. As we're recovering from COVID, some of our resources are more limited, but we certainly will be engaging you in more along the way. And what I would suggest is, for any new old coaches, it's a great opportunity now during COVID to take some of those online courses. They're particularly the free ones. They're interesting. The subject matter is really important, and it helps prepare us as an organization to get that lens of safe sport, and we can all get back and have fun and enjoy ourselves, particularly when we have as many people back as possible because they're returning to a safe sport environment. So send it back over to Fawn now. Don't know if there's any questions or any discussion items that people would like to have. I can stop sharing my screen, and over to you, Fawn.
That was awesome, Graeme. Thanks very much. Really engaging stuff, but yeah, I'd welcome you guys for any questions you have into the chat. I'll also share the link to where we're storing the coach education sessions as well, so I'll pop that in there. It's just on the YouTube channel.
Any of you older coaches want to share some fun stories? So one I'll share with you right now is all of the things about first aid and that the courses that you take and identifying issues. And one of the issues there always is pressure to play and enjoy it. I've had lots of injuries, and my body doesn't move as well as it used to, and because of that, I've been very sensitive to the players that I coached. One year I was coaching a young player, and she fell and hurt her arm, and then I said she couldn't go back in, and she went over and talked to her dad, who was a veterinarian, and her mom was an ER nurse. They talked to her, and then she came back over and said, my mom and dad said I could play. And I said, well, I don't want you to play. I just don't think you're ready to. And went back over to mom. Mom came over and of course said, I guarantee you she's fine. And then it was her arm. So I was like, well, let me see you run. So she did a little figure eight and she did a jog and things like that. Then it dawned on me. I said, okay, do a throw in. And she went to try and do a throw in, and she couldn't because she had 2 fractures in her arm. So one of the things as a coach, player and parent may be upset with you if you don't let the child continue playing, but you can always know that there's going to be opportunities for you to be wrong, which is if you're erring on the side of safety, no one's going to get too bothered with you. But in the end, you'll have the support of myself and Fawn and the club, whereas taking unnecessary risks is something that we want to avoid.
Graeme, did you talk about the 48-hour rule?
Go ahead, John.
Okay, sure. Sometimes you encounter parents at every level of the game, from the lowest level to the highest, who are rather intense. They'll, keep a stopwatch on how long their child is on the field for. They'll compare their child to other children. Perhaps they don't like the position they're in. They're really overbearing, and they can make your life very difficult if you're, especially if you're coaching at a higher level of players. So to protect a bit from that, we have what's called the 48-hour rule, because what happens is, for whatever reason, say you have a child who hurts their ankle early on in the game, and says, I don't feel, comfortable putting weight on it and going back out. So you don't play them. And meanwhile, mom or dad's over there getting extremely heated, and they're 90 or 60 or 90 minutes later, they're super pissed off. And what normally happens is they come over and they start just bearing down on you and getting loud and swearing, or who knows what it is. But to mitigate this, we have what's called the 48-hour rule. And what that means is, if a parent of a player, or even if a player themselves, if somebody wishes to engage you about something that happened during a game or on the field, or even during a practice, you say, that's great, let's talk about it in 48 hours or a couple days. Because what that does is it gives a couple of days for everybody, for saner heads to prevail, for them to lose their mania, to get their head off it, to go back to work, to mow the lawn for a day or whatever, so that they're reasonable, so that everybody can have a calm, clinical conversation. And sometimes with some parents that's not possible, but it's a lot easier to talk to them 48 hours after and not when they're just cranked on it. So yeah, so that's a good practice for every coach at every level. I mean, even myself, I've done it for a long time, and I'll employ it. So yeah, it's good. So if someone comes up to you and you see that they're, if you see that they're a little ticked, or they're not, you're going to have a difficult conversation, and just say, look, the club has a 48-hour rule, so great, let's talk about it in, if the game's Monday, let's talk about it, give me a call Wednesday night or something like that. And that'll probably help you a lot. We're at the 5-minute warning, it looks like.
Great. Yeah, so I'll let you know that for whatever reason, my rule of 2 slide didn't save on my latest version. I guess I probably just closed it before I saved it. We'll go over that another day. The rule of 2 basically just means that effectively you need to have, ideally you always have 2 coaches or 2 adults at all times, but it's a little bit different. But we'll go over that at another session very quickly, wherever Fawn lets me talk again, if I'm allowed to.
You're always welcome to. I'm going to employ the 48-hour rule when John tries to talk to me, though.
It's a good one.
So I don't see any other questions. I'll just say to end off, Graeme, that was really, really great. We do have a CIT session Sunday night scheduled for 7:30. That's on attacking themes, and then I believe next Tuesday is when Beth Mansfield is going to give us a schooling in nutrition.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. Beth and I have been talking a lot about that, and there's a COVID return to play eye on it. There's lots of really neat stuff, and Beth is a resource that if anybody here, once you get to know her, I know John knows her, and we've had her last year doing something. Just a phenomenal resource we're looking to do more things with as well.
Everybody should be on that call. No one should miss it. It's, really, she works with our national team, so you're not going to get better advice anywhere. So definitely to have her help.
We're hopefully we get the funding, and we're gonna have a couple of interns working with our teams and on a couple of different levels, and one club, and maybe a couple of select teams are gonna get to do some really cool work with her. Well, feel free to close off anytime. I don't know if there's anything else anybody'd like to say, but I again, as usual, thank you, Fawn and John and Eunice and Tony and everybody else I know it's sometimes a very dry subject, but it's not easy. Some of the subject matter is not easy to talk about, but it's really important.
Oh, great,
Yeah,
great
that was awesome.
presentation.
I appreciate the time, guys. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
No
sir.
worries. Thanks, folks.
Have a good rest of your day. See you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. That's it, Fawn. Good night. Good night, Eunice.
Bye. Thanks.